Good morning. Today we're going to be talking about solving percent problems. This is from lesson 5.6 in Big Ideas Math on page 226 to 228. Your essential question is, how can you use algebra to solve a percent problem? And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write a little bit of notes, and this is on how to solve. And the first thing you do when solving is you're going to rewrite the percent, and you can do that as either a fraction or a decimal. And I'm going to show you both. Then you are going to, and this is for finding the percent of a whole. And that'll make sense more once we start doing the problem. So rewrite the percent as either a fraction or decimal. Excuse me. Then solve by multiplying the percent by the whole. And this will give you what part that makes. So let me show you an example. Oh, the percent. So an example, let's just do an example. And we'll explain as we go. So if I were to try to find 20% of 60, and I don't know what it is, and I'm going to put a variable there. So remember, anytime we don't know, we put a variable in. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to solve it using a fraction. Why not? So the first thing is this percent. In order to make it into a fraction, I'm going to put it over 100. Because remember that a percent basically means just per 100. So 20 over 100. And then of, do we remember what the word of means? It means to multiply. So we're going to multiply. And then 60 is already a whole number, but I need to make it a fraction if I'm dealing with fractions. So to do that, you always put a 1 under a whole number. And that makes this, instead of 60, 60 over 1, which means basically that 1 goes into 60 60 times. It's a whole amount. Equals. Now, there's some things I can do. First of all, I can simplify some of these fractions to make it easier on me. I know that 20 goes into 100 5 times. So if I divide and I can simplify this fraction by doing 20 divided by 20 is 1. 100 divided by 20 is 5. And now instead of 20 hundredths, I have 1/5. That's this simplified. I could have also just taken those zeros off and been looking at 2 tenths. 2 tenths divide each by 2, and I get 1/5 as well. Which means I now am left with this. Can I simplify that and pull out cross products? I can, because I know that 5 can go into 60 12 times, so 5 divided by 5 is 1. Now I'm just going to multiply straight across. 1 times 12 is 12. 1 times 1 is 1, which means that 20% of 60 is 12. So that's using a fraction. Easy, if you like fractions. The next way is, like I've told you before, my personal way that I like to do it. I like to make it into a decimal. So to make this into a decimal, I am going to, well, let's make a little note over here. So to do this, we put it over 100 and then simplified. For this one, we are going to move the decimal point 2 times to the left. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to go 1, 2. So I'm going to have 0.20, 20 hundredths. This could also be, I could get rid of that 0 completely and I could just have it as 2 tenths. That works as well. Remember, of means to multiply, and now we have 60. So now all I have to do is I need to solve. So to solve, I'm going to take my 60, multiply it times my 20 hundredths, 0, 0, 0, 0, 12, add. Okay, now how many decimal points do I have? 1, 2, move it in twice, and I end up with n equals 12. I get the same answer for both. So that means that 20% of 60 is 12. Okay, so that is one type of problem. And those ones are pretty much the more simpler of the ones where you don't have to move and isolate a variable and deal with it. But that's one way. So now we're going to create a line, and we're going to talk about the second type of problem that we might see. And that is when we have problems where we don't know the whole number. So finding the percent of the whole. Up here, we don't know the part. We knew the whole was 60, we knew the percent, but we didn't know what part of 60 was 20%. Now, we know the percent, and I'm going to do 75% on this one. But we don't know the whole. So what number is 48? So we know we've got, let me move this up, finding the percent of a whole. So we know that we've got 75%, and we know that we've got the part, but we don't know what the whole is. So this is finding the whole. Now, this is going to involve some trickier algebra, not impossible, and it's actually really good things for you to learn because it's the basics, foundation of algebra. So the first thing you're going to do is I'm going to solve this one using I'm going to use a decimal. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite the problem. And I'm going to, when I rewrite the problem, I'm going to change the percent to a decimal. So remember, we move this decimal place twice, so I'm going to have 75 hundredths of, remember, of means to multiply, so multiply. And what number? Whenever you have the word what number, it's saying you don't know what it is. If you don't know what it is, in math we make it into a variable. So in this case I'm going to call it n. So this is our variable. That's our variable. And is, when we see is, it means equals, and we have our whole number 48. So now, the next thing we need to do is, remember we talked about how these little variables, they like to be alone. So we are going to isolate the variable, which is fancy math words for get that variable alone. We're going to do this by using the inverse operation. Now, once again, fancy math words for opposite operation. And in this case, we have 75 hundredths times n. Well, what is the opposite of multiplying by 75 hundredths? It is to divide by 75 hundredths. And then we have to balance our equation by doing to both sides. So whatever you do over here on this side of the equal side, you got to do over here. So we're going to divide over here by 75 hundredths as well. This crosses out all this, and it makes our variable by itself. Now what we have to do is we have to actually do this division problem. So that can be a little tricky, so let's put it over here. Remember, the king in your castle, it's the 48, he's the top, that's going to go inside the division bar. And then we got 75 hundredths outside your division bar. Now remember, you cannot divide a decimal on the outside in the divisor, so you have to move the decimal. So I'm going to move it twice. Once, twice, but whatever you do out here, you got to do in here. Once, twice. And so now instead of 75 hundredths into 48, I've got 75, because this is now gone, into 4,800. Now, I know that 75 times 5 is going to be 5, carry the 2, 35, 30... Whoopsie daisy, what am I doing? I think I wanted to do one more. I'm going to do this, actually, we're going to go back. I'm going to do 75 times 6, because this last number is a 0, so I think that's probably a better shot. 5 times 6 is 30. This is 42 plus 3 is 45. So we've got 6, 450. We subtract, we get 30. Drop down our 0. 75 goes into 300. Let's try 75 times 4. Carry the 2. 300. So now I have my answer solved. So going back over here, we now know that 75% of 64, that whole, that's our variable, is 48. And so that is the answer to this problem. If you have problems or questions, you are welcome to email me, or you can go back and rewatch the video. Have a great day, and good luck.